Zanzizi Zambibi. Welcome to the Zanzizi podcast. Zanzizi Zambibi.
Welcome to the Zanzizi podcast, YouTube.
Hey, look, it's Marty.
Hello! Is that my theme music? I mean, you are kind of a fairy, aren't you? Jesus, man. That's what they called me in high school. That's right. If you can see, I feel like it was a running joke specifically when we did conspiracy therapy about how we would get Marty on, but he's too busy doing this. Yeah. And he built his Fort Knox of board games. Got my Fort Knox. That's right. And it's complete with Root and Space Base and Stone Age. Is this a board game podcast? No, it's not. Oh. No, today we're talking about Quentin Tarantino, my dude.
Quentin Tarantino.
That's the name. Okay. So I feel like in order to talk about a filmmaker and get into the history of his life, specifically being a filmmaker that I can't think of anyone that influenced our specific generation more. So realistically, there was like a small handful of them, and I wanted to start with this one. I mean, I instantly threw it out to you, and you were like, "Bring."
Yeah, this is in my wheelhouse. I mean, as far as growing up and stuff, we can get into that.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I can immediately get into some of the information on Tarantino. Obviously, as of this year, he's 60 years old.
What an old fart. So solidly Gen X, man. Like, I think,
yeah,
like, it's so weird to think about now, but like all the Gen X trailblazers or whatever, they're like in their 60s now. They're old.
Yeah, I mean, my mom is just a smidge older than he is.
Okay.
I don't know how old your parents are.
They're boomers for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's kind of that ilk, like that. Like, it's weird to think of my mom could have been like if she had suddenly just been influenced by, you know, sleaze cinema
Sure.
and just shot out west. She could have been in that same group.
Well, I feel like that generation of people too, you know, the ones that kind of followed right behind the boomers, kind of grew up with like the weird stuff. You know, like they were kids in like the late 70s or late 60s, early 70s, so they were like 10, 12 watching like Rocky and Bullwinkle and stuff, and like things like that. So everything was kind of weird and like psychedelic back then. So to be a kid during that time had to have been like formative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, not only that, but like a time where specifically you could have been, you're too young to go to Vietnam. And then basically the come down of the world in the 70s after Nixon and Watergate and the war's over.
And you're like a teenager.
Right.
You're in your, you know,
Yeah.
your impressionable years as far as pop culture.
And then when your frontal lobe is finally formed, there's Reaganomics for you to look forward to.
The 80s.
Yeah.
Let's do some coke.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's an interesting time. Like, I feel like it's an age. Like, I'm like a young Gen X. I was born in '80, and Gen X is like a weird kind of lost in the shuffle generation. You know, like it's all boomers versus millennials.
Yeah, it's almost like a zodiac, the way those things are worked out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you were 80, 81, 80, 82. You're kind of You're kind of Gen X rising with a millennial moon, and it's
I
like,
always feel like I was born 2 years too early to know any Pokemon. You know, besides like the like my brother, who's 6 years younger than me, just knows them all through like osmosis and stuff and that sort of thing. So I'm like right on that fringe. Like,
you and I are about the same.
You're a few years younger.
Yes.
So
And Larry's a few years older than
Right.
even you.
Right.
but we can still connect. I think our age demographic, I want to say it's from about 38 up to about 45.
Your podcast demographic?
Well, pretty much.
Targeting single men age 38 to 45.
I see your numbers. It's like 48% of this podcast is 35 to 45.
Sure.
But no, it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that we were raised specifically in the 80s, and we know what the basements look like. We know exactly how we had to blow on the cartridges. We know.
Sure. But I think that, I kind of, when you think about Quentin Tarantino and his impact culturally, like, I think that's a big part of it, is he just came in this, like, in-between time, too. And, like, Nirvana had thrown that hammer into culture and, like, kind of primed the pump for
what came in the 90s.
For a bunch of change. For, like, basically Gen X to take over culture completely.
I've been having this recurring thought recently that, like, I know we break down different decades really specifically when it comes to just like what the effect was on culture. And I have had more, as I've gotten older, I've had more and more respect for bands that went past that like one decade. Say, like, for spoiler alert for a future episode, Genesis. It's like, that's 4 decades of music.
Yeah.
For even one of those songs to be popular is insane to me. And for someone like Tarantino to have many decades of films to hit on such a positive level with his viewership and or audiences.
Well, and I think, let me know if we're going to get too ahead of ourselves, but he's almost like one of the last big auteurs that can put out a film anymore, with things going towards, everything's streaming now, and that's why I don't watch a lot of stuff, because the quality's not as good. We've kind of lost movies like that, like cutting edge movies, but he's one of the few, you have like your Wes Andersons, other people that...
Scorsese,
sure, yeah.
Ari Aster.
Yeah, there's a
Eggers.
handful, but they're getting less and less.
I will argue they're still out there, but the Marvelification and Disneyification, like whether it's remaking animated properties as live action, needs to go the hell away. And I was a huge fan.
Yeah, of course, but honestly, I think that it's more. It's more the fault of streaming. Netflix and things taking over the entertainment space, and especially people not leaving their houses, theaters not doing as good. I mean, and we'll talk about it. Like when Tarantino was like at his prime, or even in his earlier days, it was awesome to go to the theater. Like you could go there and see anything. I mean, you had like anything from like Silence of the Lambs to like Caddyshack 2 or Weekend at Bernie's or whatever. There's just such a wide array of stuff you could go to see at the theater, and that's not so true anymore.
And plus, there was the Blockbuster, the video store era. That, I mean, you worked that one, but just the randomness of finding a movie that had maybe like some random quote on the box that was like slasher.com says this is. You have to see it to believe it.
Right.
And, you take it home and be like, holy shit, Tetsuo the Iron Man is crazy.
Or sometimes you get a stinker and you just have to kind of live with it, I mean, now you can just turn it off because
attention spans are so short.
But it was different when you made the effort to get out and go to the movie store. I have this movie that looked cool, then you take it home and it's crap. Like, you had to do a little bit more research, I think.
It's kind of the same as far as film as it is with music in that way, because there's just so much of it. But in music, it's this weird thing. I mean, we can go on tangents for days about film, and that's what this episode's really for too, is to really kick off a film series that I'd love to come back to other different directors. So let's get into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And by all means, tangent on anything that you feel like. He's from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Originally born March 27th, 1963, the only child of Connie McHugh and aspiring actor Tony Tarantino.
Tony T.
That's right. Who left the family before his son's birth. Piece of shit.
Whoops.
He is...
I'm going to LA. Screw this place. Screw this kid. I'm out of here.
I do know that later on his dad, I think, tried to get in contact
Yeah,
with
I
him.
bet he did. Once he found out he was like
Yeah.
a successful millionaire.
Yeah.
Son, I love you. You're not gonna believe this. I lost my shoe and I ended up in a hotel and I just don't even know. But I'm so happy to finally be in touch with you.
You know, Tony's got a bad rep, but the truth is, I got lost. I made some bad prosciutto. I made a left when I should have made a
And I
right.
just got out of the bathroom.
Yeah, now I'm done.
I've been pooping my brains out for the past 30 years.
That's right. He is of Irish ancestry through his mother, though he claims she is half Cherokee. His father is of Italian descent. He was named in part after Quint Asper, Burt Reynolds' character in the TV series Gunsmoke. Which makes sense. I mean, it's just coming full circle with his most recent picture.
If I had a kid, I would use that same naming mechanism and name my kid after Norm Macdonald, Burt Reynolds, Turd Ferguson. So his name would be Turdin Tarantino. Turdin Fergusino. That's why I don't have kids.
I get it, but you can always rename one of my daughters to that, and I will be...
I'm not gonna rename one of your daughters, dude. That's weird.
Hey, this is my friend Marty. He's gonna
Even
rename
if
my
I die
daughter.
in battle and I somehow have to raise them in your
Yes.
place, they're still gonna keep their names.
The great mailman battles
Yeah.
that'll happen one day.
Yeah, that's our sacred bond as mailmen. You're next up in seniority, so if you die in battle, I get your kids. I think that was a weird union choice, but
They did it.
they did it.
And I'll just place my children into your mail satchel, and you'll just carry on with them like you're a kangaroo with it in your pouch. Tarantino's mother married musician Curtis Zastapule soon after arriving in LA, and the family moved to Torrance, the city in Los Angeles County, South Bay area. So it's interesting to me, especially again, and I feel like I'm just going to keep circling back to this with his recent picture and how perfectly he nailed the late 60s in California.
So how old was he when he moved to California?
So 66 would have been.
So he was just a little kid.
So he's,
Okay.
baby boy.
He wasn't like, I mean, it's different if you're a teenager and you switch locations.
Right.
I mean, that's going to make a way bigger difference than if you're a little kid.
I had really distinct memories though,
Mhm.
especially because I think inevitably.
Sure, but it's not going to change you as a person as much.
Yeah.
It's not as big of a...
Location though, a setting is key to obviously in a movie, and I feel like if there's ever been a movie person when it comes to a director, I can't think of a more movie-based
I mean, that's
entity.
kind of his thing.
Yeah. Which I love his line. People like to ask me, man, like, I'm not gonna do a Tarantino. But
I was waiting for it.
I know.
I was like, come on. You're
No.
half, you got a toe in. Let's go.
I dabbed, and I
That's
was
fair
like,
enough.
too cold.
If you're not going to go all the way, don't do it.
No.
That's what I said.
But he literally was just like, people ask me if I went to film school, and I say, I just went to the films, not going to the film school. I just went to the films.
Cool, man. It's so fucking Gen X, dude.
It is kind of one of those things that somebody like my mom would say, and I would be like, yeah, shut up, just keep knitting.
I was taught by culture.
I mean, sure, why not? But as I said, they moved to LA or to Torrance, a city in Los Angeles County, South Bay area. Zastapule accompanied Tarantino to numerous film screenings, while his mother allowed him to see more mature movies such as Carnal Knowledge and Deliverance.
Whoa.
Have you ever seen Deliverance?
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say
It's one of my
it's
faves, yeah.
a great movie.
Yeah.
And I remember I was hanging out with like some film guys one night, and I was talking, and I was like listening to them talk about how great. Because at that, I think it would have been 20, and this is post Boogie Nights, and I was talking to somebody about how great I thought P.T. Anderson was, and Paul Thomas Anderson. But I remember distinctly talking about it, and somebody talking about how great of an actor Burt Reynolds was, and this is before I'd seen Deliverance, and I was like, I don't get it. Like, isn't he just driving cars around and like bang chicks? Like, I had no concept. I know. Great actor, R.I.P. After his mother divorced Zastapool in 1973 and received a misdiagnosis of Hodgkin's lymphoma, Tarantino was sent to live with his grandparents in Tennessee.
So back to Tennessee, and he was how old then?
If that's 73,
Okay.
then yeah, about 10.
That's a bigger...
Yeah, I mean, 10 is definitely like prepubescent, but it's still...
It's early to bounce around.
But that's... I feel like...
Around the country.
I remember spending all of Christmas praying to Jesus Allah Buddha that I was going to get Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Return or whatever it was called. But I gotta know how the sequel is.
Let's see how this all turns out.
I gotta know if Diddy finds out the secrets to the banana. So Tarantino in Tennessee, he remained there less than a year before returning to California. At 14 years old, Tarantino wrote one of his earliest works, which it's Kill Bill.
Yeah.
No, this is cool because this is something that he actually shares with Stephen King. Because Stephen King started sending his stories to publishers when he was 14.
Oh, nice.
Which is crazy. Like, most 14, I definitely was like, pubes. My nipples got harder.
Well,
Women.
It's so much easier to be productive at that age back then. There were way less distractions.
True.
Even for us, I mean, Stephen King, Quentin Tarantino didn't have Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo.
True.
I mean, it was books, and comic books, and maybe some TV. They didn't even have videos. So if you were 14 and you had like a creative mind and you were like driven, then yeah, you were just gonna sit there and write all the time.
And I always think it's funny too nowadays when I hear people ragging on our generation when they're like, talking to an ex.
These old millennial late Gen Xers, they just can't get it together, can they?
Well, or they're like, they still play board games or video games. It's like, yeah, motherfucker, have you seen these video games? I mean, like the equivalent Donkey Kong nowadays is like a Rayman Origins, which is this beautiful art style French Ubisoft game that is super fun and replayable. Or, the first person games, like they just came out with a game called Redfall that I played today, and it's like hyper realistic, gorgeous, mature as fuck. Everybody's swearing and cussing and doing whatever, and transgender or whatever politics they have or whatever. Like it's so like I'm saying it's an assault on the senses. There's so much going on, and it's like I don't know. Like if it's not for me, then it's definitely not for my kids. Like I assume they're marketing to an older demographic.
They've seen worse stuff.
That's true. So,
in church.
Right, indeed. His first work was a screenplay called Captain Peach Fuzz and the Anchovy Bandit.
Even back then he was a weirdo.
All right,
Subversive.
You see, in this scene, Anchovy Bandit is going to shoot Captain Beefheart and Peach Fuzz, and then say a bunch of intense stuff about politics, man.
Let's not start sucking each other's pits quite yet, gentlemen.
Yeah. And there's lots of feet. So, Tarantino later revealed that his mother had ridiculed his writing style, and that, as a result, he vowed that he would never include her in his wealth.
Which seems like
What an asshole.
that seemed like a stupid thing.
His mom's like, maybe you could you work on your prose a little bit. Fuck you, Mom. You're never getting any of my money.
I hate women.
What the hell?
Feet are great.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah, I would say don't hold grudges your whole life because it'll age you fast and heart disease.
You can hold grudges, just not like if somebody kills your dog, and that's one thing.
Right. If
But
somebody
if
has
just criticizes
yeah.
you,
criticism
like,
is not
don't
enough.
hold
to-
grudges over words.
No, of course not. So, as a 15-year-old, Tarantino was grounded by his mother for shoplifting. It was a novel by Elmore Leonard called The Switch, and he stole it from a Kmart. Did you ever thieve anything? I did.
Oh yeah, lots. Lots.
My heart!
I was a poor kid, like.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
My fat fingers.
I tried to walk out of there with your heart, but your girlfriend stopped me. She said, "Stop, please. That belongs to me."
I love it.
Yeah, what the hell were we talking? Oh yeah,
Thief Times.
I guarantee you he did not steal an Elmore Leonard novel. Like they were selling Elmore Leonard novels at Kmart. He totally, it was like some stupid you know.
70s, late 70s?
Yeah, it was like a
penthouse or like a club or like a truck stop, Betty.
Yeah, it was like some freaking romance novel, some Danielle Steele shit.
I mean, maybe. But he got grounded.
Trying to make himself sound cool.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I could see that. You know, if somebody wrote a book about me, though, I would... See, I had the dumbest shit, because whenever I got my hands on, like, the risque stuff, like, I was too dumb to have it. Like, I literally had a bag that I buried in the woods that said Playboys and Fireworks.
Yeah, that's it. But you ever meet those, like, people, like, these super pretentious people that are like, I was very into Bach and Renaissance era paintings when I was 10 and a half years old. No, you fucking weren't. You were watching cartoons with the rest of us, dildo.
Exactly.
Have you met those people, though?
Yeah.
Like, that's what Tarantino's kind of, like, coming off as when he says that. Not that I hold it against him or anything.
No,
'cause whatever,
no.
But it's just kind of funny, like...
I love, like, here's the thing. I wouldn't consider this a review show. It's just a history podcast. I love Tarantino. I've definitely gotten the vibe that he controls, like, interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think people are kind of, I mean, if you met the guy, you'd have to be kind of overwhelmed. He's a personality.
Yeah.
And there's a reason you can kind of fall into doing a Tarantino or a Tarantino impression. He has this way with words. I mean, he's a novelist, or a scriptwriter at least, and a great one. So, as I said, he was allowed to leave only, since he was grounded, he was allowed to leave only to attend the Torrance Community Theater, where he participated in such plays as 2 + 2 Makes Sex and Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, they died. That's Shakespeare. His weak-ass endings, occasionally. The same year, he dropped out of high school in Harbor City, LA. So he's like, fuck this, I'm out. I'm gonna go find me some more Elmore Leonard books and
That tracks. Yeah.
hide in the woods.
Find some more Kmart's to pilfer.
Exactly. Kmart. Is there any Kmart's left?
No, they're long.
Just Walmart came along and was like, boom, 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 boom.
I think it was the internet. Like, the internet killed Kmart.
You know.
Because it's like, I can get stuff shipped to me in 2 days. I never have to set foot in a Kmart again.
I can't.
Like, that's a winning proposition right
I
there.
feel like Kmart was like the casualty probably well before Circuit City. Unless there's a Circuit City Radio Shack
Man, I don't
Kmart
know.
somewhere.
Well, Circuit City, like, they bit the dust a long time. They were like the first one of those that you mentioned to go. Just right after Media Play, they were like, we're out.
Sorry, we don't got enough circuits to sell. Through the 80s,
We're more of a Circuit Village now than we're, Circuit Ghetto.
there's a Radio Shack KFC next to it in the strip mall, just randomly. Through the 80s, Tarantino had a number of jobs. After lying about his age, he worked as an usher at an adult movie theater. Did you know?
I did. It was called. It was called.
I read every Quentin Tarantino interview when I was 7 years old. I memorized them. Of course I know.
The place was called the Pussycat Theater.
Nice.
But what I found out was interesting. It was just a job. He wasn't like there to be like, I can't wait to see the movies. Although I'm sure he enjoyed the movies.
Yeah.
It was more.
What dude at that age is like?
I'm just here for the pay.
That's an interesting angle on that cunnilingus shot. Like,
boy,
this script needs some punching up.
Boy, Deep Throat really does that, doesn't it? Well, spoiler alert, this film. He spent time as a recruiter in the aerospace industry, and for 5 years he worked at Video Archives. Have you listened to that podcast?
Of course, yeah. I love it.
A video store in Manhattan Beach, California. That's where Video Archives was located. Tarantino stated about this, when people ask me if I went to film school, I tell them, no, I went to films. Which you've already heard.
I think you said that.
Deja vu.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 1986, Tarantino was employed in his first Hollywood job working with Video Archives colleague Roger Avery as production assistant on Dolph Lundgren's exercise video, Maximum Potential.
Hell yeah.
Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, I did. Actually, I fell down a weird Dolph Lundgren YouTube hole and found like footage of them at like Cannes, and they're like, Dolph Lundgren walks up and Jean-Claude Van Damme's like, no, you fuck me, fuck you, and there's like some muscle pushing going on, and then
That's
like,
great. Man, like, dude, some of the greatest photography from the 80s is one of my favorite photos is Dolph Lundgren and Grace Young. They're like a couple at the time, and they're like nude, and they just have like perfect sculpted bodies.
Yeah.
It's like a black and white photo, and it's just, yeah. So that's
awesome.
wow.
I'll have to check it. I love that era.
Oh, Lundgren.
He's cool.
Dolphy Dolph.
He seems like the nicest. He's got like a PhD in like rocketry
Yeah,
and like
he's fucking
physics.
awesome.
It's like, yeah, he's such a cool dude. So before working at Video Archives, though, Tarantino co-wrote Lovebirds and Bondage with Scott McGill. Tarantino would go on to produce and direct the short film. McGill committed suicide in 1987, but not before destroying all footage that had been shot.
Jeez.
Later, Tarantino attended acting classes at the James Best Theater Company, where he met several of his eventual collaborators for his next film. In 1987, Tarantino co-wrote and directed My Best Friend's Birthday. It was left uncompleted, but some of its dialogue was included in the movie True Romance,
Yes.
which is a great film.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll unleash the. I'm
I'll
holding
unleash-
back.
I know you are.
Yeah, you can see it in my eye. Yeah, you can see that cleave in my eye. Like,
I just wanted to give a special shout out though. They mentioned him going to theater acting school in California. If you haven't watched Barry, check it out.
I haven't, and that's on my list. So
It's-
yeah, I will.
Bill Hader acting, but I don't want to give anything away. So, the following year, he played an Elvis impersonator in Sophia's Wedding, Part 1, an episode in the 4th season of The Golden Girls.
That's a fun one.
Golden Girls is getting its own future episode. I didn't appreciate the Golden Girls when they were on. After the Golden Girls, the period after the Golden Girls, but now in this, at where I'm at now, I think it's probably in the top 5 greatest sitcoms
See,
of all
I
time.
never would have owned up to it back in the day. But, you know, when you're a kid, when we were kids, there was just such a limited amount of stuff to watch. So whatever was on was on. You only had like 3 different channels. So,
Right.
and I think I learned to appreciate Golden Girls then. I mean, I wouldn't have, if you would have talked to like 12-year-old Marty, I wouldn't have been like, yeah, Golden Girls is fucking awesome. Like, no, but I knew, you know, I didn't turn it off when it came on, and that's saying a lot. Like,
It-
or
I
should-
mean,
like
yeah.
it was funny enough and like accessible enough that even as like a 12-year-old boy, I was like, I'll roll with this. This is fun.
One of my proudest Redbubble purchases is a Thank You for Being a Friend Ninja Turtles Golden Girls mashup t-shirt.
It's the fucking nerdiest thing ever.
Yeah.
That was great though.
I throw that out there because I don't want you to go down with the ship when it's like as far as your board game love, we're on the same level completely. That's why our kinship is so strong, my friend.
I feel like that was a weird, somewhat attack, but
Hey man, I love you.
You're not the only fucking mouth-breathing nerd here. I'm a little bit of one too.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of that. But let's just say, if you're out there, Hollywood, Golden Girls, maybe leave it alone.
yeah, no.
Please don't touch it. It's like Back to the Future. It's immaculate as is.
Yep.
They don't need to touch
You're
it.
not gonna improve on it.
So, Tarantino recalled that the pay he received for the part helped support him during the pre-production of Reservoir Dogs. He estimated he was initially paid about $650. However, the episode was frequently rerun because it was a best of lineup. Therefore, he received about $3,000 in residuals for 3 years.
That's awesome.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy that he would get residuals, such a small part, but
Now, here in the 90s is when the breakthrough happens, and where we really get into it. I mean, this was the history leading up to this, and we're really going to dive in hard on the films. But after meeting Lawrence Bender at a friend's barbecue, Tarantino discussed with him about an unwritten dialogue-driven heist film. Bender encouraged Tarantino to write the screenplay, which he wrote in 3.5 weeks and presented to Bender unformatted. Impressed with the script, Bender managed to forward it through contacts to director Monty Hellman. Hellman cleaned up the screenplay and helped secure funding from Richard M. Gladstein at Live Entertainment, which later became Artisan, now known as Lionsgate. Wow. It's weird how those things just fold in and fold out. It's like, what is Orion now? Oh, that's Paramount. Oh, that's Paramount Plus.
I mean, imagine that happening now. Like, some guy that played an Elvis impersonator on a tiny show is all of a sudden, like, you know, writing scripts for, like, major screenplays. Imagine if a Netflix executive saw the fucking Reservoir Dogs script, like, tomorrow. They'd be like, no. It would never get made.
It would never, yeah. Be like, the dialogue's a little too much from scene 1 to scene end.
Yeah, they'd run it through their algorithm machine and be like, no, this isn't gonna get us enough people turning on their TV or whatever they do. Yeah,
Their AI robot script reader would just fucking flame out and fall over.
yeah.
So, Harvey Keitel read the script and also contributed to the budget. Harvey Keitel, everything I've heard about him has made me like him. Because you get that, like, Hollywood page 6-y kind of, like, documentary style sidebars from different stuff, and everything I've heard, it's like he turned down being in a Kubrick movie at one point. He's like, yeah, I do like 10 takes, I'm fucking Harvey Keitel, I'm out. And meanwhile, you know, Kubrick's like, do it again.
Yeah, no. But no, Keitel's fucking
Beast
Yeah,
actor,
he's
too.
awesome.
So fucking good. But yeah, he contributes to the budget, so you have him to thank too when it comes to this amazing auteur coming around, taking a role as co-producer and also playing a major part in the picture. He's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
In January 1992, it was released as Tarantino's crime thriller Reservoir Dogs, which he wrote, directed, and acted in as Mr. Brown, and screened at the Sundance Film Festival. The film was an immediate hit, receiving a positive response from critics.
Well, the awesome thing is that, you know, Keitel kind of added his whole pull to that thing. You know, like, he had a certain amount of leverage and thrust to put behind that movie. And I mean, without him in it, that movie would suffer too. So it kind of worked in everybody's benefit. Like, I don't think Harvey Keitel, you know, as awesome as he is, I don't think that he put money down and helped get it made out of the kindness of his heart. I think that he saw
Potential.
He saw what he could do with that role as an actor, and, like, really kind of turn that into his advantage. Because, like, it's kind of like a way for an actor to, like, hand pick the juicy fucking role, is to find an up and coming dude and throw some money behind him and be like, boom, and now I'm fucking Harvey Keitel and this is Reservoir Dogs, and you get this awesome thing.
Amazing movie. Have you ever
featuring-
seen? Sorry, but have
No,
you
no,
ever seen
go ahead.
movies where that happens and it doesn't work? Like,
Oh, yeah,
they're
no,
kind of fun.
it-
anyway, so that's like a fun rabbit hole to go down.
Well,
Sometimes it's like these vanity project films.
Right, and there's tons of them. I mean,
Yeah.
it calls to mind immediately for me, kind of like the almost like the latter. And I, no offense to him, but like the latter day, like straight to streaming Bruce Willis movies, or like in our era would have been
Yeah.
like. I'm trying to
I
think
think
of
that's kind of
actor.
a different scenario where people are just kind of socking up. I mean, you're talking almost like the Nick Cage thing, where it's just like,
Yeah.
I'm doing this just to make money.
Right.
But and I'm trying to think of a good example where it doesn't work. But there's a lot of like movies where like somebody will get behind it, like some artistic force, like be it an actor or director, will kind of gamble on this up and comer, and then it all just like is shitty.
Yeah, well,
And I can't think of any because those are always the movies that I see on like some fourth-rate streaming thing, like Crappy with an I, like streaming service.
Right, like it's
It's like-
New York, Vegas Hotel Streaming Plus, Cash App,
Yeah.
sponsored streaming service.
But anyway, yeah, there's like a graveyard of B movies that are super fun to find.
I mean,
Anyway.
some of them are great. Some of them are like actually kind of fun. Like, and I think that some horror movies can kind of skate on it if the premise is really good.
Yeah.
But they'll have like somebody attached to it. But I think what you're talking about specifically is kind of like your up and coming Disney actor B actor who is like, but I want to be a real actor, and then they get like a knockoff Coen Brothers director.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, there's a lot of journeyman directors out there who are just like
Sure.
literally there to do it, and like they come up to them and like, have you seen There Will Be Blood? Can we make this?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
we don't have a story. So let's talk about the cast in this movie because it's a fucking banger. To me, I mean, you got Tim Roth, who's
God.
excellent, Harvey Keitel, Michael Madsen, Chris Penn, Sean Penn's brother.
Oh yeah, Chris Penn's great.
And probably, I want to say, one of the earlier, but definitely more memorable Steve Buscemi performances as Mr. Pink.
No, Buscemi is amazing, and he was always kind of a character actor before that too. I mean, he had been in stuff, and I'm just going off the top of my head. I haven't
No.
been recently, but like, no, he was an established like really good actor to that point, which was kind of like even more kind of incredible that movie has such a murderer's row of actors. Like,
I mean, it's really an ensemble piece. I mean, it's meant to be
Yeah,
as far
of
as,
course.
I mean, it opens in the diner, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't rewatch it for this series, which I should.
I haven't seen it in forever.
But I just
yeah.
watched it literally like 6 months ago.
Okay.
And I own it on Amazon because usually you can get most of those, because it's not, I don't know if it's considered like for some to be, I mean, it is one of his best movies, not trying to get to the end of where we're going to go in our second segment, but I got it and it's amazing, but there's a great diner sequence. Basically the plot of the movie though is when a simple jewelry heist goes horribly wrong, the surviving criminals begin to suspect that one of them is a police informant. So it's like a suspense, boilerplate type guy movie, if anything. But it's also told in very limited sets. Like it's maybe 3.
It could almost be a play. Like,
Yes.
And that's aspiring writers and directors out there, when you're starting out, like that's a smart move, is to just make a play if you're trying to write a movie, because it keeps the budget down and stuff like that. But that's the greatest part about Reservoir Dogs is like the writing and the acting, and that all of the action kind of happens off screen. Like you never see the heist.
Right. And that's, yes, it's all in the dialogue.
Yeah.
And I think that what's great for our generation to appreciate how much you can create just by simply just putting people in a room and having them
Yeah.
use their
Well, good
talents.
writing too.
Right.
I mean, just
Good writing.
the way the characters interact with each other, the dialogue especially, is always been Tarantino's kind of strong point. I would say the Michael Madsen performance is probably my favorite from that movie. And I know there's been some cancelable things with him, but like, he's so good in that movie. To me,
I'm a Tim Roth man myself.
Tim
but
Roth's
that's
great.
fair, man. I mean, it's all good.
I will say the film's budget was so low that many of the actors were asked to simply bring their own clothing as wardrobe, most notably Chris Penn's track jacket.
That's awesome.
Hey Sean, can I borrow this? The signature black suits were provided for free by the designer based on her love for the American crime film genre. Steve Buscemi, love this guy, wore his own black jeans instead of suit pants, and Michael Madsen wore a jacket and pants that came from 2 different suits. And now, we're going to talk about this before we take a break. And I know this is a big one. His next movie.
Well, Lil's got something to say. No, and you know that Reservoir Dogs was and Pulp Fiction too. They were both like heavily borrowed from like Asian
Yes.
stories and plots and stuff too. So that's kind of a fun aside. But anyway,
It's something that, especially if you're curious about later on, you can definitely see like face value from like things like Kill Bill and all that. But like, yes, for sure, he had been inspired by literally before he could really write or read, he was able to. It's okay. We can take a break.
okay.
We're gonna take a quick break and we'll come back more about Tarantino.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay, Grace.
A-holes.
You were so good, doggy.
What? You guys gonna go outside? Wanna go outside? Or we go to see stuff. We'd go see a movie.
Studio 28.
Yes, of course. Normally, like, it would be my dad would go pick up my grandma, because she lived in an old folks' home, and we would all go to a movie. It was like every Sunday. It was a Sunday thing.
It's okay.
So I'm running out of breath. Like, oh.
No, it's all good. Story man.
So basically, like, every week, I would see a movie. So I saw all the movies, basically. Like, every big movie back then. I saw all of them. And then, once I got a little bit older, my dad would let me go see something else while they saw whatever. So when they were seeing, like, Fried Green Tomatoes, my dad would buy me a ticket for, like, Boys in the Hood. Or something like that, you know. Like, I did Boys in the Hood I saw in the theater when it came out. But anyway, so just a little bit behind me and how I kind of grew into being like a movie buff. And that kind of just perked, like when Pulp Fiction came out, I mean, I was chomping at the bit. Because I like soaked up everything. I had like all these, like, you know, we were big like video renters back then too. So I watched so many movies all the time. I loved it.
Well, it was probably one of those times too, where formatively it was time for you to break off, say, from the parents when it came to like their influence, because there's a window there where it's like, okay, dad's music's pretty cool, and then eventually it's like, but I want my own thing. The 90s is now. I'm real.
Yeah.
I'm a real boy.
Yeah, well, luckily, like, my dad kind of fostered that too, because he was kind of into the same, like, kind of weird, like, cutting edge shit. And I think before Pulp Fiction came, I mean, I remember there was a huge buzz leading up to it. Like, it was very, very.
It was on dorm rooms before we even could fathom the immense popularity.
Well, the hype for Pulp Fiction was huge, because the Reservoir Dogs, while it wasn't like a giant, it didn't like, you know, shake the earth, I think, when it came out in theaters, but I think it kind of had that, you know, that buzz behind it, like, afterwards.
And plus you've got prime era career comeback performance by an incredible John Travolta.
Well, and John Travolta, I mean, what did he do before then? Like, Look Who's Talking? Yeah, and Grease, so it was
Saturday Night Live.
And we'll get into it, but like, there's no reason that should have worked. Like, there's no reason it should work, and it only worked because of Tarantino, because of his like vision.
I agree, because it's his choice to have him to have Travolta play such a lead character, but I think it was genius because it was just at the right moment for a career resurgence.
Yeah.
And look, I'll go and say Vincent is amazing as a character, and I love the way the story goes. You know, the way he shakes up the narrative by having the movie end in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So it ends almost in a positive way by having Vincent alive, even though, spoiler alert, he dies at a point in the movie. But I like the message that it and the way that he.
Well, I was talking about like the build up leading up to its release. When like you know, people were like, it's starring John Travolta as a, you know, career criminal, like dirtbag. That was such a bonkers concept. So like the hype around the movie was huge. Like,
you know,
huge.
initially it was going to be Matt Dillon playing.
Well, I thought that he, and I'm just speaking like off the cuff, I thought that he wrote the part for Travolta, but he didn't think there was any way he was going to get it, or maybe Travolta like didn't want it first or something. But like I thought that he, and maybe it's just Tarantino again, like being Tarantino, maybe he just said that in an interview, but I thought I remember hearing like that part was written specifically with Travolta.
I think in his mind that was the perfect casting.
Yeah, I mean it adds a certain level. It's like almost like a meta level of coolness to it, being that it is John Travolta. It is kind of this washed up dude who's kind of weirdly cool in his own way, but has never really kind of gone out of that shell of being like I'm John Travolta, like I'm a happy, smiling, funny dude. And just to, I mean, we call it like casting against type, obviously, but that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And it was used to such great effect that it had that meta kind of thing where it like, you know, it made it, just that casting choice made it a better movie.
There's a great story about the casting specifically because basically what happened is Tarantino went to a party at Harvey Keitel's place while they were in the process of getting the Pulp Fiction off the ground. And lo and behold, Bruce Willis shows up. And at the time, this guy's like a million, like literally top 3 actor of choice in '94.
Yeah, and he was a huge action star.
Yes.
And he was kind of, his ticket was fading though, and I think that's why he did it.
Not as much as you may think, because the studio was all about basically him, Depp, and DiCaprio. But what happened is literally Bruce shows up and says like, hey, take a walk with me. And he's like, I read your script. And Tarantino's like, oh, wow. You like Reservoir Dogs? He's like, no, I read Pulp Fiction. And he's like, I think I should play Vincent. He's like, well, John Travolta, I want him to play the role. He's like, you know, and Bruce, to his credit, was like, that's great. And he's like, you know what? Read the script again, and I'll call you tomorrow, and I think you should play Butch. That's your wheelhouse. Literally goes home, reads the script. Tarantino calls him, and he goes, what is it? He's like, the shortest line in the Bible is Jesus wept, and the shortest sentence in Hollywood is I'm in. And that's like the Tarantino story, basically. Like he got
I think people were kind of like they knew a Tarantino movie. He was able to get such good actors because the writing is so good, the characters are so good. So I mean, and that's another like kind of career defining moment for Bruce Willis too. You know, is him being Butch in Pulp Fiction, because his star was fading as an action star. I mean, the Die Hards. This is pre-Die Hard 3, right? And post-Die Hard 2. Die Hard 2 was what, I want to say 90? 92?
I know the first one is 89, I'm pretty sure.
I think the first one's 88, and I think the second one's 90.
Die Hard's 88, you're right. not sure on Die Hard 2. I have to.
But anyway, so and in between them was The Last Boy Scout, and that was considered a huge flop.
That's true. You're right.
So, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, wasn't Hudson Hawk before that too?
Yeah, and his music career, which we just covered.
So he was definitely like on the outs.
Die Hard 2's 90.
Yeah. See?
You're right.
I don't need the internet. I got this shit right up here.
Although he did have Death Becomes Her, which was kind of
no, that's definitely like out of his line. But that didn't blow the world up either. That wasn't a big hit. That probably was considered a flop. So yeah, he's kind of on a string of flops at this point too. And that was, just the thing that he needed, like some career pep.
You've got a Uma Thurman in an incredible performance as well.
Yeah, amazing. And she's relatively unknown at that point.
Yeah.
She had been in a thing or two, I think.
I know
She
Gattaca
was definitely not a household name.
No,
by any
she became. I mean, she's the poster and she's the femme fatale.
Yeah.
Really, and she's
perfect.
Perfect. I mean, again, the studio wanted depth for Tim Roth's role, which is stupid. Tim Roth's perfect as Pumpkin and Honey Bunny. Amanda Plummer is another, I think, criminally underused actress, but she's great in this movie. The opening scene in the diner where they're just doing the Tarantino rants and then turns into a stick up.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's a movie of pure adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
It's infinitely quotable and it's
coolness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the entire movie is just cool.
I feel like that's where it really obviously, and I think to everyone's amazement.
And when you watch it, like, pay special attention to the writing and the characters, because the last time I watched it, I remember thinking specifically, like, oh, it's no wonder he could get all these great actors, because these parts, like this writing and this, they're all super cool. Like, it is crack for an actor. Like, that's like, especially at that time when his star was probably the highest at Pulp Fiction. Like, he was given, I think, pretty much carte blanche for that thing. If you think about how cutting edge and how weird it was, how different from everything else. I mean, it was kind of a risk, too. I mean, I don't think it was a bit of a surprise hit. I don't think anybody thought it was going to blow up, really take off like it did.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar, and for his second film, it's such a just gigantic, I mean, but maybe before Reservoir Dogs felt like, is this, just a one note, he came out of the gate strong.
No,
this was like,
no.
Yeah.
No, nobody thought that. After Reservoir Dogs, after that, like, he was the talk. And Reservoir Dogs was the thing that was either going to, Pulp Fiction was the thing that was either going to, like, sink him or shoot him to the moon. I think he knew.
So a quick synopsis of the movie, it's basically in a few sentences. It's the lives of two mob hitmen, a boxer, a gangster and his wife, and a pair of diner bandits intertwined in four tales of violence and redemption.
You should have just made something up, because if you haven't seen Pulp Fiction by now, then what the fuck are you doing? Like, turn this podcast off and go watch it, idiot.
Yeah, if you're a younger listener, I would definitely highly recommend that you seek it out. Awesome. I can't think of a bad performance in it. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson's infinitely quotable and memorable.
Tarantino's performance was pretty bad. It's a little problematic. I mean, it's iffy. Whatever. I mean, he made some weird choices, but what are you gonna do?
Did you know that Mr. Blonde, aka Vic Vega, played by Michael Madsen in Reservoir Dogs, is the brother of Vincent Vega? Quentin Tarantino even had a spin-off film in development titled Double D Vega, which was a prequel to both movies.
Oh boy,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't. Sounds like it could have been.
So, obviously, I saw this movie. You said you were 14.
Mm-hmm.
Did you immediately? How do you think this informed you after? Like, I feel like, was this?
I gotta tell you, I was pumped for this. Yeah. I went and saw it opening weekend. Like, I was so stoked for it. I remember I went with my buddy Joe. He was like my best friend back then. And I don't think he wasn't as into like Hollywood as I was, you know. And so like I was reading like the Entertainment Weeklies and the Premiere magazine and stuff like that, because my dad had subscriptions to all those magazines.
That's actually really cool.
Your dad, you know, well, I was like, yeah, I mean, but that was something that I got through osmosis. I was just read that stuff when I was on the shitter or whatever. But I was super into it, like even at that young age. But like my friend Joe didn't know what to expect. Like he wasn't there. We ran into this kid. His name was Eli, and he was like the neighborhood juvenile delinquent dude. Like this kid, he was like our age. He was 14. He probably out of like 3 different stints in jail or whatever. Like he like legit like had like legal problems all around. Like you saw this kid and you were like, ooh boy. Cops knew him by his first name. Just that kid. And we ran into him at Studio 28. I remember this, like opening weekend. I'll never forget. And it was like, oh, what's up, Eli? You know, he was like, oh, what are you guys seeing? We were like, Pulp Fiction. He was like, Pulp Fiction? That movie's for insert slur here. We're like, oh, what are you seeing? And it was like the latest Steven Seagal movie or something. Like he thought we were like super idiots for going to see Pulp Fiction because it just sounded like some weird, you know, movie that grandpas would go see or something, you know. But
I dealt with that too.
so that's kind of like when you were that age when this movie came out, it wasn't really on your radar unless you were like a movie nerd. I mean it wasn't on a lot of people's radar because it was. If you followed that sort of thing, then it was definitely on your radar. But if you weren't, if you weren't the type of person that didn't know what movies were coming out in the next few weeks, you wouldn't have like. And that's why I think it was such a big surprise, like in award season and shit too. People were like, "Whoa, this is like the future."
Yeah, and I think on top of that, everything was blowing up because this is an era where PlayStation's hot going. You've got Final Fantasy. I remember seeing the EGMs and the Game Pros that had like images from Japan of like the Final Fantasy VII and thinking the same sort of things about directors and movies and music even because this is an era where I was like huge into the Downward Spiral and Soundgarden and like this music's amazing. Like it's not like that Led Zeppelin shit even though I love it, but this is new and buzzy riffs and detuned and all this stuff. There was
later than that because Teen Spirit was what 91, 92, and that had already, like I said, that had kind of primed the pump for this to happen. Like there was this cultural shift tsunami of like basically like Gen X and like it was along the same lines of the nerds being in charge of culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's kind of how it was with Cobain and Nirvana. You know, like at his core, he was a music nerd that was into all this obscure stuff and used all those influences and put it in like this package that just made everybody like, oh my god, this is like so new and fresh and awesome. And that's like, you could very much argue that Tarantino was like the Nirvana of movies.
True. No, I
agree.
agree.
That same cultural, just fucking
This is movies.
earthquake. Yeah, and
And
it just like made, yeah.
I think the good majority of critics got it and liked it, but there still were a lot that were like, ooh, no.
Maybe the old guard, but I mean, that movie was pretty, from what I remember anyway, it was pretty commercially,
Universally praised.
universally, like, loved.
So then you get things like From Dusk Till Dawn,
Mm-hmm.
which...
Well, he directed an episode of ER the next year. I think that was 95.
Well, there was also Four Rooms, and the
Yeah.
story concept for Natural Born Killers.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's cool. And True Romance is in that era too.
Oh, for sure.
Which has got
dude, I was in. I was there.
Ballin' ass
I was
Gary
there
Oldman.
for all of it. Well, True Romance, they came out the same fucking year, didn't they? Or was
93.
True Romance. So True Romance came out a year before
Mhm.
Pulp Fiction, and I think that's another reason that Tarantino was on my radar so much, because that would be, oh my god. Give me started on True Romance.
I am
Scott.
an unabashed Tony Scott fucking fanatic. Like, he is one of my favorite directors. We just talked about, or I talked about The Last Boy Scout, so he was kind of coming off a flop too, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, he died in 2012, which sucks.
Yeah, it's real bad too. He's Ridley Scott's brother, obviously, but he was like the, like the bad, you know, the like testosterone fueled. And to see that with a Tarantino script, to see those like action scenes, I mean, it's almost like what Reservoir Dogs would have been if it had a budget, right?
Yeah.
But so because I remember he sold the script for True Romance like right after Reservoir Dogs, right around that time, I think, and that kind of funded him.
And it's, I mean,
for a while to go after Pulp Fiction, to put so many resources into that.
it's hard not this is one of those things that because we haven't mentioned it yet, but like Tarantino has often said, 10 films, that's it, I'm out, I'm done.
I don't care about any of that stuff.
I
Like,
really
whatever.
don't either, because I'm like, if he's still gonna write, you still get movies like True
Full
Romance.
disclosure, I mean, like, I'm an early Tarantino fan, so
Right.
I haven't even seen Django Unchained or Hateful Eight.
Oh, no, I get
So,
it.
like, yeah, I mean, but, so I don't, any of that stuff, like, whatever, that's just people talking.
It's like, are you...
How many times is, like, Eminem retired or whatever? Like, Jay-Z and shit. Like, it's
Or
just
Michael
people always
Jordan.
say, I'm gonna grow a butt. It's like, no, and then you're gonna fucking want to buy a boat. It's just like, I better make another movie. Like, come
You know
on.
what I
man.
say to that?
Yeah, it does.
I just wanted to hit the button.
So anyway, but True Romance, oh my god, that is one of my probably top 5 favorite movies of all time. It's,
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know you loved it.
It is
that
that
much.
those convergences of worlds. I love it.
And it takes place in Detroit.
Dude, yeah, Gary Oldman. I mean, it doesn't age well, that performance. I mean, back then it was like really, but it's still like when you think about it, it's fucking Dracula. You know,
He's gonna get his own episode at one point. Just the
he's
silly.
incredible, and for him to play that character, like it's just yes, I'm so fucking there for all of it. I love that.
We talked about Tony Scott, Christian Slater.
Yes,
Yes.
Christian Slater, I think, is perfect for it. Like, and
He was considered to be in Reservoir Dogs too,
oh really?
and also Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
But I think it was so stacked. Like you said, like he has like Tim Roth in his movie. I think he's already got an idea of who his featured players are.
Mhm.
But I also think that like he's the type of director and storyteller that like if he knows who's gonna fit the best, that's who he's gonna go for.
Well, you know who my favorite
Who's that?
bit part in that movie is? Well, God, there's so many. No. It's
Yeah,
all
Michael
flooding back.
Madsen in there too.
Well, Brad Pitt
Yeah.
is great. Like he's in it for so little, but he does so. It's just so perfect. And then the other one, my fucking other favorite is Bronson Pinchot.
If you haven't
he gets
seen
pulled
that,
over and says a face. Oh my god, dude! Like yeah.
a great double feature, and then this is leading into his third movie. True Romance and Jackie Brown.
Yes, yeah.
Jackie Brown, 1997. I think criminally underappreciated.
Agreed. We'll do our top 5s in a bit, and spoiler alert, it definitely shows up on mine. But it's also one that I've only seen a couple times. Like, and that varies. It's very different from Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, which I've seen a bunch.
Well, as a huge fan of Michael Keaton,
Mm-hmm.
and we just did a Batman episode, it was one of those movies where, it was my least favorite of his first 3 when I saw it.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much general consensus.
I still liked it a lot,
Yeah.
but I rewatched it about a year ago, and I fucking loved it.
It's really well done. But I mean, what are you going? It had to follow Pulp Fiction.
Right.
So whatever it was, and I'm glad that he didn't try to like overshoot Pulp Fiction.
Jackie Brown's good. It's more understated.
Right, and
It's more like his later movies.
it's age.
Yeah.
It feels
Well,
like a more
because it's
mature.
fucking quality.
Also-
So things that are quality that don't rely on like being cutting edge or whatever, they age really well because everything's just really well done, crafted.
Also, with writing from Elmore Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
Circling back to that
Yeah.
supposed book he stole.
Well, and talking about like underrated, I think Robert Forster is like
Amazing.
yeah, he's one of the most. But he's kind of like typecast. You know, he's always that stoic, kind of old fucking boomer guy. But
But I think
he's great.
I think it works in the relationship between him and Pam Grier. I think that
And
there.
it sucks. I think that he was trying to poise Pam Grier for a career launch,
I know.
relaunch like Travolta and Bruce Willis, but just never took off with her, and that sucks.
Well, this is the best time in Hollywood when it comes to background politics either. So
Yeah.
a flight attendant with a criminal past gets nabbed by the ATF for smuggling. Under pressure to become an informant against the drug dealer she works for, she must find a way to secure her future without getting killed. It's a fun movie. De Niro's in it as well. There's not much else I can say about that, but I will say, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend Kill Bill, Volumes 1 and 2.
And this is where we
2003
get
and
what
4.
what Jackie Brown could have been. Like if he would have gone with Kill Bill after Pulp Fiction, that would have been. I'm glad he did.
No, and I think it's enough space too, because I mean, 94 is Pulp Fiction to 2003 with Kill Bill. It was enough time for it. Hey, what's that Tarantino? Oh,
And by this point, in my own personal, this is when I worked at the video store too, when I was kind of over Tarantino by then. Like, I kind of moved on. And it wasn't like I think I was more in my, like, artsy-fartsy, like,
This is
weepy, like, Aronofsky.
Aronofsky,
Yeah,
yeah.
like, So I was like, oh, okay. It was kind of like an old, it's like, oh, the Stones are coming out with a new album. Yeah, okay. Like, I'm sure it's going to be fine, but do I care that much anymore?
I remember seeing this in theaters because I was ready for a new Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I loved this movie. I walked out of it pretty hyped on Tarantino and stoked.
I saw it on video. I did not see it in the
Wow.
theater. So yeah, I actually waited that long. And I thought it was fine. It's really fun. It's super fucking fun.
It is.
It might be the most fun Tarantino movie out there.
It's got full, incredible animation in it.
Yeah.
The fighting is awesome. You've got Daryl Hannah just kicking ass, taking names. You got Michael Madsen again, David Carradine playing Bill.
The soundtrack.
The soundtrack is
The
awesome.
soundtrack is next level. And Tarantino, we haven't even talked about his soundtracks yet though, but the Pulp Fiction soundtrack,
Yeah.
mind blowing. Like I bought the CD and I just played it over and over again, thinking about the movie because I was 15 or whatever when it came out.
If YouTube is ogling the board games, Marty's record collection is also fucking phenomenal.
Whatever. Like,
But
I'm just a nerd, and I'm a very specific, kind of highly curated nerd.
That's great, but you have a passion for these things, and that's what I love. But Vivica A. Fox is in this film.
Oh right,
Also,
yeah.
one of the first of Bill's henchmen that she takes on
Yeah.
after she gets out of the hospital.
What a fucking fun movie. I'm due for a rewatch of that for sure.
Just rewatched it again. I had a whole Tarantino thing about a year ago where I was like, if I'm gonna soak up this COVID-y time a little bit more, I'm gonna snake in some Tarantino. So I kind of, and realistically, what happened was I hadn't seen Kill Bill in such, because I'd seen it, and then it was one of those things where I immediately bought the DVD when it came out, and then I think I didn't even open it because I had been moving so much in the Navy, and then when I came home, I just kind of forgot about it. And by the time, you know, and I also, I don't think I mentioned, both Volume 1 and Volume 2, he considers one movie.
Yeah, he wanted to release it, I think, as like a 4-hour movie, and the studio's like, no, and they had to like settle. Like that, I think, was when he was trying to like swing his way around Hollywood too, and so you know he spent what? So it was 2001 from, so yeah, a long freaking time making it. I think probably went way over budget too.
Well, there were some questionable practices too, because Thurman got hurt during one of the driving sequences in this movie and like fucked up her neck. So again,
Production hell.
yeah, I mean, he's going all out. He's making a serious action movie here, and shout outs to like all sorts of like old school cinema here. I mean, you're getting a real American just action, but like with its roots deeply implemented in the past with just great
And by a
choreography.
guy who's like drunk with money and power too.
Yeah.
That's the best part. I mean, it's very dysfunctional, and I think that's why I kind of tuned out too. Is just because it was like this Hollywood gossip drama all the time surrounding this movie. It's like, oh, Kill Bill's gonna be 17 hours long.
Yeah.
Like Quentin Tarantino's trying to pull like Kubrick or something, you know, where it's like, and it's like, but you're not Kubrick, dude.
No, and I think overall, I don't think Tarantino ever thinks that he's Kubrick. I think he thinks of
Well,
himself.
yeah, sure. And I mean, and some people, I mean, I think it's, I will let people like that get away with being like these Svengali assholes because it's fun. You know, like the end product is fun. Like Kubrick was such like a historically famous asshole
Just
to work with.
incredibly anal.
But
when
you
it
let
comes
that go
to-
because the final product is such a good,
So
such a
amazing.
good thing. Yeah, so you're like, who cares if he killed
Let
70
most-
puppies every day while he made this? Like, it's such a good.
I get
Eyes
that.
Wide Shut is such a good movie.
It's awesome. They're all
puppies
fucking
be damned.
They're all fucking good movies. So he goes on to, he's got credit as for story credit for CSI Crime Scene Investigation, 2 episodes. There's also a full version of Kill Bill called The Whole Bloody Affair. It comes out in 2006. There's a video game version of Reservoir Dogs. But then, Grindhouse, which his portion of is Death Proof.
This is where I fell off the Tarantino wagon. I still haven't seen Grindhouse.
Really?
Yeah. I just wasn't interested at that
It's, a,
point.
it's got a real fun Kurt Russell performance.
I stopped. This is post me working in the video store too, so a lot less movie watching in this portion of my life. Like,
I get that.
and I mean, to be fair, that's a trend. Like, Inglourious Bastards.
Interesting.
We'll get there, but
No,
yeah. And then his past two. Well, no, I saw. So anyway, yeah. But this is about where I check out.
check out.
Yeah.
So Death Proof, basically the Grindhouse is 2 separate sets of two kind of old grainy film, kind of like midnight cinema style.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a high concept kind of thing.
and it's fun if you take it that way. Like
Sure.
it's supposed to be sleazy.
It was made to be fun. Yeah, it was made to be campy.
But I would recommend it still, even though, like I said, it's kind of.
I should give it a watch. I feel like it's probably worth a revisit. Because, like I said, the craft with him and Robert Rodriguez, like their craft is so good that I bet you, if anything, it's probably aged really well.
Yes. Inglourious Bastards in 2009.
Yeah.
This ends up being the first of his trilogy of movies that end with, it's kind of like
Alternate history.
alternate history.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get too crazy about it, but I love this movie.
It's a lot of people's favorite Tarantino movie.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, no, I don't begrudge anybody for liking it. I remember waiting a long time to see it, And then when I finally did see it, I was like, oh, so that's where we are. You know, and I mean, I guess I just consider myself like an early Tarantino fan. Like, there's this kind of energy and this newness and this, like, novelty to it all.
It's like, I've met people who are like diehard Nine Inch Nails fans, and they're like, I just listen to Pretty Hate Machine and they Bernie P or
Yeah,
whatever.
and I mean, no, and I didn't dislike it. Like, I feel like I don't want to make it sound like I'm pooping on it or anything. It just didn't grab me in the same way.
You
And
have
it just kind of felt like a movie.
It-
It didn't have that same Tarantino feel. It had some.
it had a Oscar-winning Christoph Waltz.
Oh, yeah, no,
performance.
like, and of course, like any Tarantino movie is worth watching just because what he does well. He does really, really fucking well, like top of his game.
It's got a 2009 era Brad Pitt looking hunky as hell. You got Eli
Eli
Roth
Roth,
being the
yeah,
Jew Bear,
that's-
who initially that was supposed to be Adam Sandler,
That would have been awesome.
which I think I would have loved, yeah. But there was like a scheduling conflict, and I think he ended up doing something else. with-
Little Nicky, probably.
No, I do think there should be an Adam Sandler episode eventually too. I love Adam Sandler. All right, so going on, you have from 2009, 2012 with Django Unchained.
Have not seen it.
Great movie.
Still to this day, I haven't seen Django Unchained. And it's not because it's just kind of the same thing. It's like another one that I'll probably wait a long time to see. When I
Yeah.
finally see it, I'll probably be like, it's fine.
It's fun. Basically, the idea of the movie, and I didn't really say Inglourious Basterds is just a bunch of Nazi hating Americans go and kill Hitler, and it's a fun movie. So
Django Unchained?
no, sorry,
Oh.
Inglourious Basterds.
I'm like, what?
Django Unchained is, with the help of a German bounty hunter, a freed slave sets out to rescue his wife from a brutal plantation owner, played very amusingly by Leonardo DiCaprio. Fun movie. Samuel L. Jackson's great in it. Also, Jamie Foxx, incredible. Also, Jamie Foxx, one of our best actors. I wish he was in more stuff, because he was so great in Ray. I just not sure how much of a fan of biopics I am anymore.
Don't get me started. No comment.
No comment.
No
All right.
comment.
2012, Django Unchained. Moving up to 2015 with The Hateful Eight.
I have not seen The Hateful Eight.
All right. So, The Hateful Eight is basically his Western. It's in the dead of a Wyoming winter, a bounty hunter and his prisoner find shelter in a cabin currently inhabited by a collection of nefarious characters, and witty dialogue ensues.
I bet you it's super fucking fun.
It is. It's just it's a chooch too long for me.
Isn't it like three and a half
Almost
hours?
3. It's 2 hours
Yeah.
and 48.
Anything that's over 2.5 now, I really have to. I'm like,
He's one of the few directors I'll sit with it for, though.
Sure.
And in 2019, finally, we get to his 9th film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
And I have seen this.
I also love this movie about a faded television actor and his stunt double who strive to achieve fame and success in the final years of Hollywood's golden age in 1969 LA.
It's an amazing movie. Like, it's just such a great slice of life. I mean, especially if you don't go in with high expectations, which I didn't. You know, because like I said, I hadn't seen Hateful Eight or Django Unchained. So my expectations for Once Upon a Time were pretty low. Like, I was just like, oh, this will be fine. But I ended up really liking it. Like, I thought it was really well done. Just a fun little slice of life, alternate history.
It's nice too because with Django Unchained having DiCaprio and Inglourious Basterds having Pitt as leads, to put them together in a bromance.
Yeah, it almost seemed like almost the same movie as Inglourious Basterds in a weird way. Like, kind of the same pacing, same... But maybe that's just kind of what you're gonna get with a Tarantino movie nowadays. It's just like that.
Well,
Very samey kind of.
and it completes his trilogy of the revisionist history kind of alternate history fun
Sure.
with its ending. And again, won't necessarily spoil that one, but I will say it's fucking fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's expected.
It's great.
All right. That's his filmography. He's got one more movie in him, and according to what I read today,
Just
it's
gotta
finished.
squeeze it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's called The Movie Critic, or that's the B title right now that's floating in Hollywood. Which I think,
What's left of Hollywood?
yeah.
It's
Maybe-
floating around the Netflix studio.
And I've heard him say some things that I agree with. He is on a recent episode of Two Bears, One Cave with Tom Segura as Tarantino as a guest host, and he specifically goes out of his way not to badmouth directors or current movies, but he does get into it a little bit about the Marvelification of films and
Yeah.
how it's upsetting to see that the majority of the interest goes towards those and scooping up
Well, I don't think that's fair. I mean, it's just what gets people out. It's people. Companies are so risk averse now,
Mhm.
and I think that's what people like Tarantino, Scorsese's kind of made comments like that too. Like all these kind of old big boppers, you know, are really lamenting the fact that there isn't a place for them. You know,
Well, I would
they
argue
can still. They're the few that can still get away with it, but there isn't.
if there's a Miramax now, that it's probably become more of like an A24.
I was gonna say we got A24, and that's what we have, and that's it.
But we
Before, dude,
have Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, and we have
sure.
the Daniels.
But dude, when Tarantino opened the door, we got so much out of that. And some of it was good, some of it was bad. The same thing with grunge, and I mean it's almost like the exact same mirror of a movement. You know, we got Robert Rodriguez. We got, you know, Luc Besson had a resurgence.
I
think
love-
as a direct result of Pulp Fiction. Tarantino, The Professional, I think got big over here as a direct result of that. You know, I think it might have been even been a little earlier, but just that kind of hype behind it, like. And that's just right off the top of my head at the same time. I mean, we had multiple Miramaxes, so it would have been like having 4 different A24s to compete with each other. And that's gone. So, it's
I'm a glass half full guy.
sure, and that's fine. And I mean, I think that we're just in a different place. Like,
It'll never be what it was, and that's fine. That
yeah.
part of getting older is being slightly nostalgic for days of yore, but I think in some ways we still get great stuff,
Mhm.
and I appreciate streaming for what it is, for allowing some younger generations to create content. Some of the best stuff I've seen as of recent has been on streaming. Things
Because
like
it's the only stuff. there
True,
is.
but also Scorsese is out there championing Ari Aster, and I still haven't seen Beau is Afraid yet.
Yeah.
I'm excited to,
It's,
though.
have them like 3.5 or something. Yeah.
Ari, come on, buddy. I love him. I do. And I've heard things that make me think I'm gonna love it. So,
Sure.
but to kind of get more current with Tarantino, obviously he did the novelization for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I'm actually going to read because I've heard there's some different
Sweet.
avenues. And,
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
and speaking of, you mentioned Audible. I think that'll be one of the next audio books that I do. But yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. I did hear also that Tarantino has an 8-episode limited series treatment that's basically just needs a gloss over.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's going to be up.
Yeah,
one
that'll
of
be
these
interesting.
days.
Yeah.
So, do you want to take a break, or do you want to go into our final part right now?
Let's take a break.
All right, let's take a break, and then we've got one last segment, folks.
Sorry, I was just hoping that.
All right. And we're back. Final segment. We are going to count down our top 5, and I have them memorized.
Oh my, look at this, what a professional. Well, you told me to make a list. I made 2 because I wasn't sure which way to go. So, but we
Okay.
are going to confirm that it is the top 5 written and directed.
Yes.
So like True Romance, out.
Right.
From Dusk Till Dawn, out. Okay, good.
These are our top 5 Tarantino, written and directed.
We're counting down.
Yes.
All right, number 5.
Number 5. Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
All right.
Ladies first. This time, we could, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
My number 5 Quentin Tarantino film is Reservoir Dogs.
Wow. Okay.
I'm of the 9 that he's made, and I say Reservoir Dogs because I believe it show. I have seen Kubrick's first actual film, and it is not so great, but he's learning.
Okay.
Tarantino out of the gate made a movie that I think of all of the, I think it's the best first film of a director.
Yeah. Well, it's up there for sure.
But not only is it the best first film, it's a fucking banger of a film.
And it's simple.
I think that if me and you in our next age, our golden age, if we ever sit down and write a film, we have to.
It's
I'm
not
saying-
gonna happen.
Okay, damn it. Well,
I can barely put my pants on nowadays. I'm not gonna write a film in 20 years.
all right. Sorry, one can dream. One day.
Although we'll table it. Maybe
I'm
I'll
saying-
get a second.
I'm saying before I sit down and scribble it out in a room with monkeys, I think it's a must-watch.
Oh, absolutely.
for-
Like I said,
for writing.
it's just such. It was very smartly done.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And so, like I said, I don't have, so especially without the written bys, I'm pretty limited because I haven't seen
It's 9 movies.
a bunch of them. But I did really enjoy it. It did kind of exceed my low expectations.
You've only seen it once, right?
Right.
Interesting. Okay, this is going to be a good list.
No, I'd watch it again. And that's what, as soon as you said Reservoir Dogs number 5, I was like, oh yeah, this is good. We're
Yeah.
on different pages here,
Yes,
so it's going to be fun.
completely.
But yeah, I'm not invested in it. Look,
Okay.
I'll sit here and talk to you all fucking weekend about Pulp Fiction. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's fine. It's good. I'd
That's-
watch it again.
Good. I have more to say about that, but we'll get to it.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so
Number 4.
number 4. My number 4, Quentin Tarantino movie. Brace yourself.
Quentin Tarantino.
Pulp Fiction.
Get
That's
out-
why
get out of my
I
house.
knew you were gonna say.
Get out of my fucking house.
But this is going off the statement, and I'll say this, that he's in my top 3 favorite directors of all time. There's a reason we started with it in this film series. 2, it's of the earlier age of his films, and I love it. I think these are all S tier if we're doing the modern ranking
Sure.
system.
Hey, no judgment here, man. I'm not going to harp on you for your taste. It's fine.
The only things with this movie, and I think it's a great movie, it isn't a movie, say I'm sitting with a bunch of cinema snob guys and they're like, hey, I want to know, what Tarantino you want to watch. It isn't in my benchmark of his, that's what I'm going to go to, because everybody knows that.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, it is that, like, never mind.
Well, it's your list, dude. I mean,
No.
we've come at this from 2 kind of different experiences and 2 different angles. So that's all right, and that's awesome. That's what makes these conversations fun.
I think also
yeah, I don't begrudge.
an era is.
You act like you're like a lawyer. Like,
No,
arguing
no.
a case. Like, I don't care. It's like,
No, I know.
Again, it's your list, man.
I think a lot of it also has to do with the time. I think when you a time frame of when you watched a movie plays a part.
Absolutely.
So things like Raiders of the Lost Ark, take me back to being a kid. E.T. takes me back to being a kid. Star Wars takes me back to when I would watch it over and over and over on VHS tapes and everything.
And you know what? Like I never watched Star Wars as a kid. I just wasn't exposed to it. That's why I don't care about Star Wars now. Like so, it's all relative, bro.
But even being in my top 5 Tarantino movies, it really does make it an infinitely rewatchable movie to begin with.
Sure.
So, what's your number?
My
4?
number 4 is Kill Bills, and we'll just say I included them as 2 because I think that's fair.
Oh yeah, no.
Or I include them as 1.
The whole bloody affair.
Anyway, yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Like, I kind of already moved away from Tarantino at this point. I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid as much anymore, and it was kind of a happy surprise.
Right. Like it's like showing up and being like, I didn't like the band's new album, but they put on a hell of a show.
Yeah,
Kind of a deal.
yeah, for
Yeah. I completely understand. So that's your number 4. Anything else you want to say about it, or have you rewatched it
I
recently?
haven't, and I'm due. I'm definitely due.
Well, hey, that's why you do. That's,
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely want to do it again. But yeah, very fun. I remember, I will tell you this, I remember my copy of it that I owned, at least Kill Bill 1, I had it previously viewed from Blockbuster, because I worked there and got discounts, so I probably paid like $1 for it. And I just remember it had one of those ugly, like, generic cases, like, not the actual DVD jewel case, but the shitty ones that Blockbuster used to, like, put the little sleeves in and stuff. Like, oh, man. I hate it. And it was always like a bastard step kid in my collection, because it was like, you don't have the right jewel case, you fucking weirdo. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It was super fun movie.
true. Number 3?
Number 3!
My number 3 is also backing up on to what you
The
just
Kill
said.
Bills?
The Kill Bills.
Right on.
The whole bloody affair. What I love about those movies specifically is that there's so much to get lost in. It's such a big thing. It's such a big project. It's amazing to me that he makes it through that era on top still. And in the fact that after this, and not to get too far ahead of myself, I think he goes on to make his best stuff and mature as a filmmaker.
Sure.
So
Well, I
it's
think
a great
Kill Bill is
midsection.
kind of where he finally made the step from being like an indie darling to a big budget, big
like
honcho.
all around legacy director.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, he
So,
makes it through.
you know, like I'm into his older stuff.
No, it's totally cool.
One of
Hey,
those
you
things.
like the
But
pop
it is
record
like by
era.
It's almost the same trajectory I have with Tarantino as I had with like the Wu-Tang Clan. You know, like
Oh yeah.
I was lined up at the door for their second album, especially. Their first album I listened to in the 7th grade over and over again. I couldn't fucking name you 2 songs off of like their last however many albums because I just had moved on at that point. So I'm a transient when it comes to pop culture. So I move on and off of things very quickly.
He did have a knack for knowing the culture too. There's something about that movie too that speaks to the aughts era and informs it. I mean
Oh, yeah, for sure.
that music, the bum, bum, bum,
Yeah.
it was in everything.
Didn't RZA do the soundtrack for that?
Yes.
I know he at least contributed
Yes.
to it, but did he do the whole score?
I'm not sure about the whole score. I can pull it up, but what's your
Not
number?
a huge deal.
What was your number 3?
Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown.
Yeah, it's a very number 3 movie. Like it's kind of like sandwiched in between numbers. It's like just a good, consistent, nice filler thing.
No,
If you're gonna show your grandma a Tarantino movie, it's probably be Jackie Brown.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
It's inoffensive. It's like an old pair of sweatpants. Just, you
I
know.
mean, there's still. You also have Bridget Fonda.
Yeah,
which is nice.
he's got a type, doesn't he?
He does. He does.
That's not why I cast you, Bridget.
Again, like you mentioned, Pam Grier didn't really get the boost from that.
And that's tragic, man. Like she should have had her Travolta moment.
Music by the RZA.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Kill Bill.
Yeah. So I mean, at that point, I wasn't listening. If that movie would have come out when I was 16, we'd still be cleaning up the shit out of my pants. Like seriously, the RZA doing the music for a movie directed by fucking Tarantino, like my head would have just fucking exploded. But by 21, 2001, I had already kind of gone through my punk phase and moved on to like indie rock and stuff. So I was kind of in that headspace. I was watching the Aronofsky movie and like Dancer in the Dark and like Kill Bill looks too fun. I'm gonna sit over here with my Lars von Trier fucking.
I was gonna say the Lars von Trier episode we get to do.
Oh
one
boy.
day. I do like him a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Also, sidebar, when it comes to B actors, he also had Michael Parks in Kill Bill, and Michael Parks, R.I.P., he's a phenomenal. He's also kind of went into the Kevin Smith averse later on, but I love his casting. The actors and actresses he gets are just phenomenal, and Jackie Brown is a perfect example of that. Like all around, Robert Forster, Pam Grier.
Yeah.
It's
Solid.
De Niro,
It's solid.
Bridget Fonda. It's solid. Number
2.
my number 2 is Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, okay.
It is
Interesting.
unbelievably. It's unbelievable. That movie, to me, and when you said it earlier, it resonated with me. I was like, he's right. It is the latter half Tarantino era movie that a lot of fans will be like, yeah, that's my favorite. And I've seen it in the polls on like Reddit and stuff like that. People just being like, yeah, but I know Pulp Fiction, but you bear with me here. It's perfect. And like, I remember when I saw Christoph Waltz getting the Oscars and awards treatments for that, I was like, yeah, I mean, that scene, that opening is unfucking believable. Mm-hmm. When he's talking to he's in the French cottage with the guy, and just the tension of that scene, it's like, I don't think I've ever seen a scene more tense.
Well, one of the other iconic scenes from that movie too is the rest of the basement scene in the bar. Yeah. Was that Armie Hammer?
No. The Steve Jobs Fassbender.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's
God, that had fucking great acting in it too, didn't it?
It did, and it's the scene where your German is just a little off.
Yeah.
And that I love that, and that with the inspiration for that scene really comes from, and Tarantino breaks it down in one of his recent interviews. He's like, you had all these World War II era, kill the Nazi type movies that came out with like Clint Eastwood and all these actors of the time, and in those movies, when you're just assuming because they're speaking with an accent, but it's English, whatever, like they're just going to get through. But the real tension would be, obviously this is an American agent or a British spy doing a German accent and speaking German, but you would be able to tell the dialect's a little weird.
Well, so here's where I'll kind of loop everything back together. Like that scene specifically, like there were so many of those scenes in Reservoir Dogs.
Right.
And Pulp Fiction. Like the way it was written, like there is so many scenes with like tension, like little things going on that, Inglourious Bastards got, I had a couple of them, but whereas in his younger days, he played more heavy with those, like, tension-filled scenes, and then, like, being older and more laid back as a filmmaker, I think he kind of, like, just wanted one big one to kind of revolve around.
True. But why I love Inglourious Basterds and why it's my number 2 and almost my number 1 is it has the budget to have so many memorable scenes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Jew Bear scene where he comes out and really fucking lays into the Nazis.
Jew, but yeah,
Bear
same
Jew,
thing.
my bad. But my number 2 and I can't even get it right now. But no, I walked out of the theater just levitating. I was so in love with that movie.
Gotcha.
Like I think some movies have that sensation over time. It was immediate with that. Like There Will Be Blood as well. I walked out of the theater like, God damn, was that a movie?
Well, that's funny. Did it like around the same time? Didn't that fucking Valkyrie movie come out with Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
So it's like that's the other end of that coin or that spectrum is like you get that. I'd take Inglourious Basterds over that like any day of the week.
True.
So it's still great filmmaking. My number 2, it's kind of boring. Reservoir Dogs. Like, yeah, it's the one that started it all. It's just such a fun. Like it's almost like a punk rock movie.
It is. It has that feeling
Yeah,
to
for
it.
sure. It has that kind of energy and that newness and that's what I, especially back then, kind of got off on. It's like, oh, these fucking cool new novel, like, just really subversive, but also like lo-fi and stuff. Like,
You're
I'm super into that.
It's an auteur. It's
Yeah.
the Nevermind the Bollocks, Sex
Yeah,
Pistols.
and I've always liked that. You know, it was like kind of more gritty, more hungry, I guess.
That's a perfect reference to that movie. It's the Sex Pistols of movies, almost in a way, of the amount of energy that's brimming in the scenes.
Yeah, it is like just a new. It's kind of like the same as Nirvana. It's just like when you see it, you know, oh shit, like nothing's ever gonna be the same. Like this is gonna.
Sgt. Pepper's the movie.
This is gonna kind of catch.
Yeah, watch it. All these.
Yeah, do it.
Here we go.
Number 1. What's your number 1?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I knew it was going to be interesting because I was trying to like piece together what you left out. I'm probably going to be Django Unchained, but I don't know. Okay, so is it just because it's the newest one?
No.
Okay.
No. And this isn't one of those the newer. I've got new glow on it. I have seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood somewhere in the range of about 30 times.
Wow.
It was my divorce movie.
Oh shit. Okay.
It was my comfort food. The first time I saw it, I think that's the same year as Midsommar. So I was focused on Ari Aster for a long time after Hereditary, and then when I saw Midsommar, I was like, oh my god, that movie. And I think that movie's amazing. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was the bromance movie of bromance movies. And it was the comfort food that I just ate up. And it's like when I try to kid myself and say, well, yeah, Radiohead, OK Computer, that's my album, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, that's kind of my Teen Angst record. Genesis is really my favorite band in a lot of ways. So it's like, I can't kid myself. The amount of times that I watched that movie, or the amount of times I would come home, or the amount of times I'd have a few tall boys and pop that on just to be like, just gotta listen to the dialogue, just gotta look at the scenic Hollywood vistas.
It's such a like a love letter to Hollywood and California, especially. It's like, I mean, even only have seen it once, and you know, not in the theater or anything. Like, even still, you could tell that movie is just so sun-drenched at times.
Yes, the cinematography, the soundtrack, the acting. It's my favorite Pacino performance of his these era. Like him just talking about, I had, you know, myself a fucking sit down and watched some movies, had a cigar and some cognac, and like in his private theater, and just like I love the prop work in the movie. I love everything about it. The true crime element with the Manson stuff, I also kind of love.
Of course, man.
Like-
And it's so weirdly tangential, you know. Like it's so. And honestly, one of the scenes in that movie for me is the Bruce Lee scene.
Yes.
I mean, it's just so fucking funny.
There was some controversy with that because I think like the Bruce Lee estate was like, well, that's not Bruce Lee. Fuck it. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's a movie.
Yeah,
it's supposed
right.
to be fun, and it is a fun sequence. I love Timothy
I
Olyphant.
mean, they were okay with the ending of it too. It's like we're not in reality here, folks.
No,
like it's
there's a reason it's called
Yeah.
Once Upon a
And
Time
that's-
in Hollywood.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what makes it fun too. Like it's not a fucking biopic or anything. We're in this weird world where anything can happen.
You got your final Luke Perry performance,
Oh right,
which
right.
I thought he was great. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a quick thing, but it's great. You've got Austin Butler,
And those are the
pre-Elvis, playing
kind of
Tex
people
Watson.
that, like, sorry, like
No, you're good.
Tarantino was really good at like picking out, kind of honing, is these people that were kind of like iconic for being whatever, but like kind of finding their inner acting chops.
True. True.
Like drawing out, you know, like Luke
I-
Perry, you're only gonna know. I mean, he should. I want Jason Alexander to be in his next movie. Because if
Oh.
anybody can get Jason Alexander past the George Costanza, which he's been saddled with for the past, 30 years now,
I love
it's
it.
going to be Tarantino.
I love that you mentioned that because Andrew Jupin from We Hate Movies was talking about. They did a Dunstan checks in
Yeah, movie. I was there.
and but he mentioned how and the extras like he's such a
Oh, right. Yeah,
he's
yeah,
such
yeah.
a great actor, but it's like he mentions that
Yeah.
they're interviewing him and he's like, George giveth, but George taketh away.
Damn right.
And he, you know, it's similar to getting those great actors in those movies, and they're playing King Lear or whatever, doing these great stage productions, but then they're just kind of.
Can we start like an online petition or something to have Tarantino and Jason Alexander's?
I would
to
love
have
to do that.
Alexander and Tarantino's next movie to lift the Costanza curse. You see Jacob's Ladder, like come on, man, Jason
Yeah.
Alexander, you can fucking act. He's
Dude, we didn't say it enough, but like, dude, I want to see Travolta back. I loved him. I love him as an actor.
But-
Like he was amazing in the American Crime Story when they did the O.J. Simpson series. As,
that was campy though. Like he's
Yeah.
campy.
I get it.
When John Travolta shows up, it's normally going to be campy. But that said, I will go to the grave saying Face Off is the greatest thing ever to be committed to film. Like that's.
I'm
and
glad that you brought that up.
And if we never had Pulp Fiction, we never would have Face Off.
True.
Would not have happened.
True.
In many, 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 many different facets, not least of which Travolta somehow becoming a giant actor, somehow taking the boost that he got from Pulp Fiction and leveraging it into an action movie career.
Hey, at least you get a great performance from all of his actors every single time. And even in the B-rolls, I mean, Emil Hirsch, I don't know what he was doing, but he gets to play Jay Sebring in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Austin Butler went on to be in the Elvis movie. So
Yeah.
kudos to those actors. Bruce Dern obviously is phenomenal.
I
love
launched
him.
his career. His young actor.
Yeah, that, you know, I think he's going
He
places.
might be.
All
He's
right.
one to watch for sure. My number one's going to be Pulp Fiction. We know.
True.
Yeah, it's. But I mean, it is all of these things we've been talking about at their when they work the best together.
True.
Like it's still got the punk rock hungriness, but it's also got the big name actors and the weird stuff going on. And I mean, honestly, like at this point, there's a lot of things that haven't aged well, like the kind of disjointed storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, whatever, man. Like it's kind kind of gimmicky.
Well, I think if you're gonna go with a number one, I can't think of if I know mine because it's based on what my personal favorites are, and I know I think that your list is great too. There's no wrong list, and nobody.
Sure.
And I don't fault anyone for having an opinion.
Of course.
And
you
I-
can't. Man.
No,
Like, you
no.
can laugh and be like, your opinion's dumb to me, but that's just
No.
because it's your opinion and not mine. Like,
No.
who fucking cares?
No, I
No,
think it comes from a good. I think anybody's opinion is totally fine. But like, I get it with Pulp Fiction, you know, and I would get it if someone said my number one for Kubrick is 2001. It's an amazing fucking movie.
We can't. The other, I mean, it's from my personal connection to it, just the place where I was when I saw it too, and how much it kind of changed my outlook on culture and stuff. When I was kind of, you know, growing into the years of being like a movie snob or like a cool kid or whatever. I never was, but you know, like having something nerdy to like be into, that was like, oh shit, everything's different now. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, yes, give me all of this. And I mean, look at what happened after that. Like the fucking Simpsons did Tarantino-esque episode. Like it was everywhere. And
Yeah.
for like, I mean, just to be at a point in culture where this crazy, weird indie, an R-rated indie movie, no less, like, yeah, that's a pretty good deal. I mean, you know, the movie that won the Best Picture that year was obviously Forrest Gump. And they're kind of like,
Hasn't really aged well.
I think it's a great movie.
I
I
love it. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. It's boomer.
But I'm just saying, like, you could have a Forrest Gump and a Pulp Fiction. You know, like that was the year 1994 was. It was such a weird fucking time for movies, but a great time. Maybe
Sure.
even one of the last good times. Like,
I have some good days.
but it also really opened, and I think the most important thing that it did, and then I'll get off my fucking soapbox, was it really opened a lot of doors for some really fucking talented indie filmmakers too.
True.
I mean, yeah, there's only a handful of people that could get away with that stuff before, but after, like, it was,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was looking for the next Tarantino. You know, it was one of those movements where, like with grunge, everybody was looking for the next Nirvana, and so you got like Pearl Jam, and then, you know, and then eventually you get like rap rock, where it goes. That movement kind of skids out.
The pendulum definitely swung back in the aughts.
Right, and that's exactly what happened kind of with movies too. Is that we had some good stuff, but we also had some real shit.
Well, you changed too. I think
Yeah,
if too
of
much
course.
of the '90s had perpetuated itself into whatever it would have, it has to go back.
Yeah.
You know, you need a respite. You need brain numbing bullshit for a little while, so that you can appreciate when it goes back.
Yeah.
So that's Tarantino, folks. He's great. What do you think?
All of it. We covered it.
We did it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Nothing more to say.
Nothing. Obviously, if you like this show, please like our page, YouTube's. Thank you for allowing us to be online. Marty, you're beautiful. Do you have anything going on that you want to?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Marty's awesome.
I wake up every morning, wipe the snot off my face, and go to work, man. That's what
Pee my pants
Yeah.
and do a hula dance. But yeah, no, thanks for coming on, my dude.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
I love having you. You're one of my best friends. You're the man. And yeah, that's really it. Please like our stuff, and we'll see you next week. And here's a little song I got for you.